You're listening to the DC Comics Chronicles, where we cover every adventure from the streets of Gotham to the skies of Metropolis and into the depths of Atlantis. With your hosts, Adam and Chris.
Welcome to another episode of the DC Comics Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Adam, and with me is my co-host, Chris. Chris, how's it going?
Hey, Adam, I'm doing great, man. Happy to be here with you once again. How are you this evening?
Doing well. It's a good time to be a fan. Specifically, DC, obviously, because we're here talking DC, but even more specifically, Batman and Batman-related characters. And we've got some stuff to talk about tonight. The main topics that we're going to cover are a lot of news and rumors and set pics regarding the currently filming HBO Max Batgirl film. And then we will give a little love and attention to Batman, the 1966 live-action TV series, because it just celebrated its 56th anniversary recently, and it had a major factor in, determining Batman's history, or shaping Batman's history, I should say. And I think it's deserving of some discussion. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get right down to it, Chris.
All right.
As we know, currently in Glasgow, Scotland, Batgirl is being filmed by the directors of Bad Boys for Life, which I won't pronounce their names because I will botch it. So I'm not even going to go there. But out of respect for them more than anything else. Because I don't care if I sound like a fool or not. That happens all the time, so it doesn't bother me. But out of respect for them, I won't butcher their names. And it is, of course, starring Leslie Grace as Batgirl Barbara Gordon. It's also co-starring J.K. Simmons as her father, Commissioner James Gordon. And it is starring Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne / Batman. As we talked about in our last episode, that was finally revealed which Batman it was going to be. It was the mystery of the internet. But now it's revealed. So, as of this recording, last week was very interesting in terms of Batgirl, Chris, because it started out with set photos, and the first one was of a mural that was being mounted onto a wall, like a set prop mural that was being mounted on a wall. And the first couple pictures, all you could see was Batman, and it was very clearly meant to invoke Michael Keaton's Batman. It had the yellow oval, the bodysuit was a little different, but I don't know if you could infer that that's going to be the actual outfit he wears, because again, this is supposed to be an artist's interpretation. Like, in the context of the story, it's an artist's interpretation of what Batman looks like. So you can't take that as, oh my God, this is exactly what Batman's going to look like. This is a new suit. We don't know for certain. But as we got more pictures of this mural had something very interesting, Chris, and that was beside Batman was in fact Robin, and I'm talking about classic Robin with the whole, short-sleeved, green gloves, red torso, the shorts, the whole 9 yards. It was like vintage, classic Robin, and it was side by side. The dynamic duo was together. Now, this is interesting because if there was no Robin in this world, I don't think an artist would randomly put, hey, look, I'm just going to draw, this other character beside Batman. Clearly, what you can infer from this, I think, maybe I'm off base, you tell me, but is that in whatever reshaped, reworked continuity this film inhabits, post-Flash, Michael Keaton's Batman had a Robin. Is that fair to assume?
I think so, and I'm glad you threw in the qualifier there, post-Flash, because that's the way we have to view all of these movies that are being released after Flash, because whether the Flash quote resets the universe or whatever it may be,
I thought you were going to quote erase, but yeah.
well, or
that's
that
the buzzword now. You know, it's
that's
not,
the hat. There's a lot of
minefield of
hashtagging.
a word.
But no, I think that's fair to say, and so that opens up the question of: is this Chris O'Donnell's Robin? Is it a different Robin? Does this follow directly behind Batman Returns, and did Batman Forever and Batman and Robin take place?
As far as I understand it, and again, things could have changed, but this is just what we know from official announcements. So when Michael Keaton was revealed to be in talks, finalizing a deal, however you want to word the situation, it was reported that the Flash would disregard Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. So those films did not count. Michael Keaton's history is continuing off of solely Batman Returns.
Gotcha.
So, and look, I count myself as a fan of Batman Forever. This is not a disparaging thing. What I just said was not me disparaging Batman Forever. I like that film. In that film, Chris O'Donnell was pretty damn good as Robin. The follow-up, not so much, but in Forever, you know, I'm on board. But that doesn't count anymore. So now you have to think, okay, if that doesn't count, now I looked at that looking at that mural, because remember, in Batman film history, there was a time when Marlon Wayans was cast as Robin.
Right.
It's even kind of reflected in the Batman '89 comic book that we're reviewing on this very channel. That Marlon, you know, that's the Marlon Wayans interpretation of Robin. Looking at this mural, that don't look like no Marlon Wayans. Obviously, clearly. So the comic that we're reading is not canon either, even though it's pretty damn fantastic. But so at some point from 1992 to 2022/3, Michael Keaton's Batman went out crime fighting with Robin. There have been reports since this mural came out from what I consider to be reliable people in the scoop, you know, industry, that say that what the Robin that is in question here is Dick Grayson. That Dick Grayson will be in Batgirl, and this will all lead to a Nightwing film. So, and there was a list of potential names that apparently have tested at Warner Brothers, like a final 4 or 5. I can't remember the names, but I do know that the name being tossed around is pretty much, if these rumors are true, Warner Brothers has made their selection, and it's only a matter of time before we get an official announcement. And according to these rumors, that individual is Dylan O'Brien, who was, of course, in Teen Wolf, the TV show, the Maze Runner films, and he co-starred with Michael Keaton in American Assassin. I believe it was around 2014 or so. If he is in it, looking at him from a visual standpoint, I could definitely see Dick Grayson there.
Sure.
So if that's the choice, I'm on board. But again, I'm not a casting director. I'm not a director. I don't know what goes into the casting process. So whoever, if the rumors are true, whoever gets cast as Dick Grayson, whether it's Dylan O'Brien or not, I'm going to give the dude a chance. Because, like I said, casting directors are hired for a reason. They have a better eye for this stuff than I do. You know, so I'm going to trust them and wait for the performance to make a judgment. But that idea of Dick Grayson potentially popping up is a cool one. I dig that.
Sure.
And leading to a Nightwing film, yes, please. Like that's on my list of things I want. Because remember, there was at one point, Chris McKay, the director of the Lego Batman movie, was going to write
going to bring that up.
Yeah. So if they can resurrect that, then I'm all for it. And again, that got, if you listen to Chris McKay, that kind of got pushed to the side because at that time period, remember, Dick Grayson was dead in the Snyderverse because Snyder had chosen to kill him off, which I disagree with, but whatever. So this reshaped world is giving us Dick Grayson again, apparently, and it's giving us a potential chance for a Nightwing film. So that's cool. It's also been confirmed through the set picture, Chris, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Barbara Gordon is a GCPD police officer. That is not, to my understanding, now granted, I'm not, I don't have hundreds of Batgirl comics sitting in my collection, I'll admit. So I don't know if this has ever happened in the comics, but in this universe continuity, she's a GCPD officer. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I, like you, haven't read hundreds of Batgirl comics. My favorite Batgirl is the kind of college age. My favorite Batgirl is right now is from Harley Quinn, the TV show. That's my favorite.
Oh, sure, yeah, sure.
But we have seen a Commissioner Barbara Gordon in the Titans TV show.
Indeed.
So at some point, obviously, she was an officer. She's a commissioner. So this could be piggybacking on that. Sure. But it also, it creates an interesting dynamic between her and her father if she is on the force and he's the commissioner.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a good call. And look, her being a police officer, when she goes out as Batgirl for the first time, she has some training behind her. So it's not like, the countless sidekicks that Arrow had in the Arrow show, and I'm not disparaging it. I liked Arrow a lot, but you know as well as I do, people would come into Oliver's life, and in one day of training, man, they were experts at fighting, at archery. So it's like at least she has a background, to defend herself. So it's more plausible that hey, she's going to go out in the streets and attempt to stop criminals, because maybe the system is failing the citizens of Gotham, and she chooses to be inspired by Batman and does this. At least she has some minimal or some degree of training. So that makes it a little slightly more believable than, hey, I'm a librarian, now I'm going to go outside and no, again, not disparaging librarians. Maybe they take martial arts classes on the side. I don't know. I'm just saying, her being a police officer gives a little bit more legitimacy to the whole thing. You still have to suspend disbelief, but in the context of the superhero genre, it makes a little bit more sense.
Sure.
Another thing that was put to rest was, is she going to have red hair or not? She's going to have red hair, because we've seen her in the set pics with red hair. And again, would I have screamed on Twitter and said, I'm not watching this if she doesn't have red hair? Of course not. I'm not crazy. That's not a deal breaker. But I mean, people may say I'm crazy, but for that stuff, I'm not crazy. Do I like the fact that she has red hair? Of course. All things being equal, I'm happy that it's as comic accurate as it can be. So that's a good thing to me. The real kind of interesting, well, I mean, obviously the mural was interesting, but the real, big splash came on Friday evening.
Right.
When Leslie Grace herself, I'm assuming with the permission of Warner Brothers, because
one would hope.
Otherwise she'd be in some big trouble. But with the permission of Warner Brothers, dropped on her Instagram and Twitter the first look of her in costume as Batgirl. Now, what I found interesting was in her tweet she quoted a passage from Year One, Batgirl Year One. So we kind of know that book is quite an influence on the production. Which I'll confess I haven't read Year One yet, Batgirl Year One.
Nope,
neither have I. What's that?
Neither have I.
I've heard a lot of good things about it, so I may have to track it down and give it a read at some point before the film drops. But the image, I like the way the image is set up. Like she is on near the edge of a building, looking out over Gotham City. And this costume was definitely, clearly, not 100%, but quite closely ripped out of the comic book, specifically,
the
2014 redesign, which is which was first debuted in an arc called Batgirl of Burnside. It's very homemade, like she puts it together herself, and it's clearly evident from this picture. But it's purple and gold, and I'm surprised they went with that color scheme. I'm happy.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised that because I'll be honest with you, when I imagined what they were gonna put her in, I'm like, well, they're gonna make it what we're used to, the molded rubber kind of thing that we've seen for what, seven or eight films, however many it's been. So, which is not a bad thing. That's what I expected, but we got this instead. And so, being that it's very homemade and it's meant to look that way, and given that it's pulled almost directly from that comic, what are your thoughts, your initial thoughts of the suit?
I think it looks great. It's got, like you mentioned, it's purple, which I'm glad they went with that color scheme. It's like a purple leather with the gold Batgirl symbol across the chest.
Yeah.
She has the gold utility belt, and then it looks like gold on the inner lining of her cape.
Yes.
And I've seen it, like you mentioned, it looks very similar to the Batgirl run from the 2010s, and I saw an image of them side by side on Twitter, and it looks fantastic, I think.
Yeah, I really like the fact that the beauty of that picture is it's moody because we're in Gotham City and there's shadows and darkness and she's perched on a building and all that jazz. But then there's that splash of color, and it's like, between the Aquaman costume that he had in his movie, the Peacemaker outfit, it's nice to see that DC just like, hey, listen, our stuff is based on comic books. We can embrace that. I mean, if a filmmaker is willing to go comic booky, then let's embrace it and go for it. I'm cool with the ultra realism too. I'm cool with both ways. But when a director of this comic property wants to go and lean into the comic bookness of it all, or bookiness, however you want to phrase that word, I'm all for it. Like, I love the splash of color we've been getting lately in these costumes, in the color palette of the cinematography that in some of these movies and shows. Like, I'm really digging where it's going here. In that way. And in addition to being, part of that 2014 or inspired by that 2014 look, it also clearly has echoes of the 1966 Yvonne Craig outfit. And you got to love that nod to the past. It's great.
I hope she has a bat cycle.
I mean, what else is she riding around in? She has to have some sort of bat cycle. I mean, at what the question will be, at what stage, like what level of tricked out is it going to be? If her comic costume is that comic accurate, like what kind of motorcycle is she riding? Like, does it have bat iconography all over it?
Mm.
Because Keaton's Batmobile has like the bat symbol on the tire. Like, if you remember, the tire had the bat symbol in the rims. So, I mean, would her potential bat cycle have that kind of motif to it too? I'm
Well,
curious.
one would hope.
Because Pattinson's does it. Like, Pattinson's bike is a bike. Nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is. You know, there's not a bat logo on it. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm saying, I wonder if this will have. I mean, maybe not initially, but once she meets up with Keaton, maybe then he's gonna be like, listen, if you're riding around on my team, we can't have you riding a regular, a regular vehicle. It's gotta be, top tier. So it's gonna be interesting to see which way they go in terms of that. Look, there are some people that did not take kindly to the suit, and that's their prerogative. But I just find it interesting that there are people that will complain about Pattinson's bat suit because it's not like Ben Affleck's, or it's not like the comics. And the Batgirl film gives us here right from the comics, and
Right.
now it's, oh no, well, why does it look like that? Well, it's like, okay, so which two, as fans, we've like, you could be like me and like both, or you've got to pick a lane, and like, do you want it exactly like the comics, or do you not? Like, you like pick a lane. Like, it's like, how can these filmmakers please anybody if there's this constant, be like the comics? Well, I don't like that. Don't be like the comics. It's like, what are we supposed to do here? So, and granted, I'm not so, and look, if it is the final suit, so be it.
And it's
But-
just a still shot. We haven't
Yeah.
even seen it in motion yet.
Right. But if it is the full suit, let's say it's the final suit, she doesn't get an upgrade, so be it. However, we do have concept art. Remember at Fandom this year, or last, whatever, 2021, they
Yeah.
released that concept art. That suit, even though it was from behind, you could tell her, the gauntlets on her arm looked different. So it looked a little different. So to me, this is just, common sense is kicking in now. This is homemade. When she meets Batman, again, he's going to say, well, we can't have you, you need to be more protected if you're going to run outside and try and take on criminals. You need an upgrade, and he's going to provide her with the upgrade. That's my theory.
Is your theory that we see that occurring in this film? Will they not already be like a team?
I don't think they're going to start out where he's got Batgirl beside him and they're running around,
Okay.
punching Firefly in the face. I think it's a scenario where, much like the comics, she's inspired by the idea of Batman and takes it upon herself to create this costume and this identity and go out there and fight crime, and then she comes into contact with Batman. That's how I think it's going to play out.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see that triangle of Batman, Batgirl, and Commissioner Gordon, because Batman and Gordon are obviously, work together and have for a long time. Now we're going to have Batman working with Batgirl, most likely, but then Batgirl also works with her father on the police force.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic. Some of the interesting things, aside from the suit. So, like I said, I'm fully on board with what they gave us, but part of me expects that there will be an upgrade at some point. the other interesting things that you get with set pictures is they have outfitted, the indoor locations, like with magazines and other such things that you may see in passing as the characters are walking by a shelf or in a convenience store or what have you. And we've seen a couple of magazines, like people have taken shots of it. And a couple of them are very interesting because one of them implies that it's a magazine, basically it's a retrospective of Vicky Vale's career in photojournalism. Like that's on the cover of the magazine.
Right.
So Vicky Vale from 1989's Batman exists in this universe.
Sure.
Makes sense. There's another magazine that has Black Canary on the cover. Like she's in the shadows, like you don't see Journey Smollett Bell. It's like it's a shadowed image of her. But talking about how she's taken the music scene by storm and all that stuff. So Black Canary, the one from Birds of Prey, exists in this universe, and there's speculation that she will indeed show up in a cameo kind of role.
Right. I've
So
heard that.
she exists, which I think is great. Give me a film with the actual legitimate comic book Birds of Prey, Huntress, Black Canary and Batgirl. I want that at some point. So she exists. Then there was another magazine that showed Lex Luthor it was in shadow, so you couldn't see him. And it said something to the effect that Lex Luthor was hiring a new lawyer in his defense for his crimes of the Capitol bombings. And he was sitting in jail in this shadowed image. So this brings up an interesting point that I definitely want to get your thoughts on. So the Capitol bombing that is seemingly being referenced happened in BVS, right? The fact that Lex Luthor is in shadows. So now, Lex Luthor is in shadows. So that to me tells me they don't want to commit to Jesse Eisenberg as being the Lex Luthor. So if a recast is necessary down the road in the new DCEU, it's doable. Second of all, the Capitol bombing, if they were erasing completely Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League, why would they reference the Capitol bombing?
It's obviously put in there for a reason. These things don't make it into a scene by accident. So they are referencing something that we have seen in the past in, 5 years ago, 6 years ago?
Yeah, 2016.
So, yeah.
Now, I'll confess. This could mean that maybe the Capitol bombing happened a slightly different way in this altered timeline than what we saw. But the fact that it happened and that's what he's in jail for says to me that a version of the events we've seen has taken place. The interesting thing, even more interesting, Chris, and I want to get your theory on my theory, is that according to this magazine, the way the cover shows and the little captions, Lex Luthor is still in prison. In both versions of Justice League, by the end of it, he was no longer in prison. So my theory is that a version of events in BVS happened. I think when the new world takes shape at the end of Flash, I think it's going to be made clear that it was Keaton there for those events and not Affleck, but that a version of those events still happened. And if Lex is still in prison, does that mean in this new timeline, Superman is still dead and has yet to be resurrected?
So by Lex being still in prison, you're saying that would disregard Justice League because he had gotten out of prison.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And if they're disregarding Justice League, then Superman could theoretically still be deceased.
Right. Well, that's an easy way to not make another Superman movie if he's not alive.
Well, and that's the thing. While they figure out what exactly, like, and so here's the thing: like, if he's still, dead, that's like if you were to take Supergirl from the Flash and give her own movie, part of the plot could be, because Flash or Batman or somebody's going to tell her about Kal-El, right? Somebody's going to explain that, hey, a relative of yours is running or was flying around and saving people in our world. So part of her end game or part of a potential film for her, which we know is in the pipeline, could be, how do we get my cousin back?
Are we ready for a second resurrecting Superman storyline in what, a 10-year span? I mean, isn't that ground that we've already
It is, but as long as we don't have to do the whole doomsday thing again.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't mind doing the whole doomsday thing again, provided it was done a little bit differently.
Well, okay, yeah, okay, that's true.
But yeah, you bring up an interesting point, because if Lex is still in prison, I mean, so is this saying that, when did that movie take place? 2016?
BBS?
Yeah.
Yeah.
2016. So that's been 6 years. So in the magazine, did it sound like he was still awaiting trial, or was he locked away?
He's hiring new lawyers, and in the
Okay.
magazine picture, he's in prison and like he's handcuffed and crouching, and all you see is his bald head and the shadow of, and then the big headline: Lex hires new lawyers on Capitol bombing charge, or whatever the exact. So if he's
Okay.
hiring new lawyers, I don't think they let him out on bail. No.
Or he was convicted and now he's appealing, which could be a thing. But yeah, that's interesting that they would throw that in there. It's in there for a definite reason, and now you've got me kind of going through the possibilities of what it might be.
So now, either let's hypothetically, let's say they work something out with Cavill. You can find a way to bring him in, bring him back, whatever. If they can't work something out with Cavill, and Supergirl is insisting on finding her again, provided that Henry Cavill or never mind Henry Cavill, provided that Superman, whoever he may be, is her cousin. She's searching for her cousin. Maybe the multiverse, she can't have the one that's deceased, but they bring in, instead of let's resurrect him with some hodgepodge convoluted thing, let's, the multiverse exists. She needs somebody to show her the ropes. Somehow, an alternate Superman. For the sake of my pleasure, let's just say Brandon Routh. Let's just throw it out. They bring him in. He trains her. He's around, and he's now in this reshaped version. He's Kingdom Come-ish Superman, and he's training her and mentoring her in a whole 9 yards. Or, like I said, they work something out with Cavill. If we're all wrong, and my other theory is that Sasha Calle's Supergirl is the daughter of a Superman and a Lois. Again, it could still be Cavill and Amy Adams' version, or it could be the Reeve Ralph, Margot Kidder / Bosworth version.
Right. We don't know what timeline she comes from, what universe she comes from. We don't know when she is being pulled from wherever she's at into the Flash's story.
So there are a lot of possibilities. But for the time being, while they're trying to sort out their Superman situation, Superman still being dead is a very plausible explanation for why isn't he around.
Sure.
So I find that very interesting. And that explains a lot. Now, we could all be wrong, and this magazine could be from a flashback scene, and this was all for naught, but like, I don't know, it just seems very specific to put it. I mean, if it was a flashback, why would you even put that in? Like, if you were going to erase those events, as some of the rumors claim, Grace, whatever her name is, says it's erased. Why would you do that why would you put that magazine thing in there if you're erasing things? Yeah, sure, maybe Justice League is erased. That I could believe. Or it didn't happen. Possibly. But to put that Capitol bombing in there, that to me says a version of BVS occurred.
Sure. I mean, that's very specific. It doesn't just say bombing, it's Capitol bombing, and they wouldn't likely be using such wordage if it wasn't meant to invoke what we saw in BVS.
Right. So a lot of interesting questions with these leaks here. And so I'm fascinated. I mean, like Chris, I'm super hyped for the Batman. Like, I can't wait to finally see that. But I'm at a point with the Batman where, like, and again, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I know I can tell it's going to be pretty damn fantastic.
Looks pretty good.
So, but I'm more intrigued and anticipating both the Flash and Batgirl because of the unknown and the what does this all mean of it all.
Sure.
And before we move on to Batman 66, if I recommend listening to the latest BOF Social Hour, because Bill, who is the founder of BOF, and he's posted.
I'm pretty sure I've listened to that one.
Yeah, and he's posted this on Twitter, so I'm not stealing anybody's thunder. But on that show, he inferred that there are more Bat-related projects or DCEU projects in addition to Flash and Batgirl for Michael Keaton's Batman.
Well, that lines up with rumors that we've heard ever since he was cast in The Flash. I remember immediately hearing that he was going to take on a Nick Fury role in the universe.
Yeah.
So of course that leads you to believe that they would develop more projects while they have him.
I'm trying to think now. See, my mind is now going like we haven't even gotten these two yet, but I'm already like, all right, if he's coming back beyond those two, what's it for? Now, the Dick Grayson stuff leads me to believe that if there's a Nightwing film, he's going to have even a small part in that.
Sure. Why wouldn't he?
Right. And you got to believe, to me, oh, by the way, another magazine cover from the set of Batgirl references the Court of Owls.
Right.
So I'm thinking, this is just me thinking. So there's a Nightwing film, and then there's another film with Keaton's Batman, Nightwing, and Batgirl. They can call it Gotham Knights if they want. Have them like investigating the Court of Owls, the three of them. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm more hyped for that than Keaton being the man in the chair in a Justice League movie. Like, give me that Gotham Knights movie. Like, I'd take that over, I'll take both, but if I could only choose one. And then I gotta believe that they're gonna want to have Michael Keaton's Batman interact in some way, shape, or form with Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn.
Wow, what a pairing that would be.
Like, just imagine miserable older Batman having to put up with Harley's crap. Like, how much of a short fuse would he have for that kind of nonsense? I'd love to see it.
Yeah, that I haven't thought of that possible pairing before, but yeah, a wizened older Batman with the buoyant energy of Harley. That would be
and like
quite the duo.
she could even make cracks of like, aren't you too old for this? Or like nods to the fact that it's without saying it's a different Batman. It's, you know what I mean? But the question that brings up, let's say they do somehow pair them up in a film, okay? What does that do? Like, what does this universe continuity shift do to Harley's history? Because Harley is tied with the Joker, who is tied with Batman. So in this alternate world, in this new world, is the Joker Jack Nicholson? Is the Joker Jared Leto?
Jared Leto.
Or is it somebody else we haven't seen yet? Because if it's Jared Leto, then the relationship between him and Harley stays the same. If it's Jack Nicholson, potentially, I mean, they could say, I mean, they don't have to say in this new timeline, 30 years has passed. You know, they don't have to get specific with dates. But, you know, they don't have to say, the first adventure was in 1989, and now, you know, it's like, but let's pretend that they do want to acknowledge the time distance. Let's say Jack Nicholson is the Joker in question. Could they alter Margot Robbie's Harley's history? Remember back when Joel Schumacher was supposed to make a fifth Batman? And he wanted to make a serious one, and it was going to have Scarecrow, and he was going to have, there was a hallucination vision that brought back all the past Batman villains, including the Joker, and Harley Quinn would make her appearance. And in this script, she was the daughter of Jack Nicholson's Joker. What if in this altered universe, Margot Robbie's Harley is now not the former love interest of the Joker, but his daughter? Would you buy that?
I guess, but we're in doing this, so that's basically disregarding all of Suicide Squad, the original film.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But we're led to believe that Birds of Prey, or at least a version of Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, and the Suicide Squad did exist.
Because the Suicide Squad really doesn't mention Joker. Like, he's not even, It's more
there's at the very, you're right. It is in Birds of Prey, not in the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, the Suicide Squad doesn't mention him at all, but Birds of Prey obviously has that beginning montage,
right,
where it talks about him. But hypothetically, could you buy into that if they?
Sure, I guess, but that means we're not getting a Joker in this reality because Joker perished 30 years ago.
Right, yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer, but if you're using Keaton's Batman, then obviously there's no more Joker.
Because I didn't expect, I'll be honest with you, I did not expect to get Joker like this Batman and a Joker confrontation. Like, that was never on my radar. Because I just assumed, all right, when this thing shakes out, Batman and Batman Returns will have happened, and then an altered version of BVS, and then, whatever else they're going to do. So the thought of this Batman having to interact with another Joker never crossed my mind. But the thought of, Warner Brothers would be like, and again, I don't think they are stupid, but they would have to be, why would you, like, Margot's Harley is money, is popular.
Yeah.
Michael Keaton's Batman, I know the millennials and the new kids on the block don't think so, but Michael Keaton's Batman is money. The nostalgia factor is there. Why in the hell would you not want to pair one of your most popular characters now with one of your most popular characters of the past? Like, to me, it's 1 + 1 is 2. So, like I said, the possibilities are endless. And can you imagine if that, let's say that is the case, the altered, the Joker's that, Can you imagine they pull a George Lucas and they do a alternate version? You know, it came with like 50 different versions of Star Wars with additions here and new thing. You know, like Hayden Christensen was edited into the one of the. Can you imagine they release an altered version of Birds of Prey where instead of talking about Jared Leto's version of the Joker, she's talking about Jack Nicholson's?
Yeah, so that would be the Joker's baby cut.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. There's gonna be a hashtag for that now. Somebody's gonna do it. But yeah, I just like the amount of that's why Flash and Batgirl are so interesting to me, because the amount of possibilities are endless, and I can't wait to watch it all unfold. I really can't. And so while we wait, there's plenty of content to talk about, and that's the next bit of content, which is Batman 66. So, Chris, I know that your Twitter handle is very inspired by Batman 66. So, we've never really talked about it much. So, what was your experience with Batman 66? Like, when did you first see it? What was your, what was your first reaction to it?
I remember watching Batman 66, the TV show, in the mornings, and this must have been, and I was at my granddad's house. No, it wasn't in the mornings. It would have been in the afternoon, and it was when I was out of school for the summer and staying at my grandfather's house because he had cable. But there were only like 3 seasons of the show, but they would show 2 episodes a day back to back, and so you're getting 10 episodes a week, so they could fit almost the whole catalog of the show within the 3 months of summer that we weren't in school. So that's my recollection and initial experience with Batman the series. As far as Batman the movie, the 1966 version, I have owned that in some form or fashion my entire life. I had the recorded VHS that was recorded off of the TV. I had the purchased VHS. I had the DVD. I had the Blu-ray. I own it on digital.
Yeah. So, like, for me, it's very similar in the sense that you said you watched it in the summertime, at your granddad's house. I remember, like, for me, the reruns were like an after-school event. Like, every day after school, I think it was like at 4 or 4:30, that show would be on. And it was a ritual that while watching that show, I had my afternoon snack of chocolate milk and cookies. And that was the thing. The movie, I've owned various formats of it. I own it on Blu-ray now, but I had the VHS, and I own it digitally as well. Now, when I was a kid, I remember that I took those shows so bloody seriously. Like, it was like, I didn't realize that there were, there was tongue in cheek, there were jokes, there were like the corniness of it all. None of that entered my it was just there's a threat to Gotham City. Batman and Robin got to solve the thing. They get captured, and it's like they're near death at the end of it. That's every first episode, and it's like I was legitimately like until the right after when you see the next episode. But in that in between, like when it ends and it's like, tune in next time, and then because it was reruns, we get to see it directly after. But between that end tag and the opening credits of the next episode, I legitimately thought that, man, Batman and Robin are in trouble. They may not make it out of this thing.
Yeah. How are they going to get out of this precarious situation that they found themselves in?
Like, it was legitimate. Like, I fully believe I was 100% behind, like, invested in it. I remember I used to there were 2 gadgets that I loved, and it was the utility belt. Batman's utility belt was like it's like I wanted one of those. I never had one, but I wanted one. I don't think they made toys of that when we were kids. I mean, maybe when the show was happening they did, but when we were kids, they didn't have that as a thing you could purchase. McFarlane, get on there. Make me a 66 belt. Damn it, I'll buy it. And probably wear it around my house. I won't confirm or deny. But there was that and the Batmobile. Like, I love that Batmobile.
Yeah.
It's my second favorite still to this day, my second favorite Batmobile after the 89 one. But those were my two favorite Bat gadgets. What were your favorite, like, gadgets of the series?
Well, of course, the shark repellent bat spray from the movie.
Yeah.
Batman had something for every situation.
Oh,
While I'm mentioning the movie, one thing I love about the movie is that it has all four Bat vehicles in it. You have the Batmobile,
yeah.
the Batcopter, the Bat Cycle with sidecar, and the Bat boat.
Yeah.
But I had a Batarang when I was a kid because I watched, like I said, at my granddad's house because he had cable, and where I lived, that was the only way you could watch the episodes was they were on cable, like WGN or some other network in America.
Yeah,
but I would watch it so much that my granddad, in his wood shop underneath the house, he made me a wooden Batarang.
That's awesome.
With a rope on it. So I would go outside and I would throw it up on the roof and I would try to climb up on the side of the house. And of course it didn't work. I ended up pulling a basketball goal down with it. I threw it up and wrapped around the basketball goal in my granddad's driveway. And I pulled on it trying to climb up it. And I bent the whole basketball goal down and snapped it off.
See that? Batman's tech works, folks.
It works. So yeah, the Batarang with attached rope is my favorite. Plus, that's what they would always use in the scenes when they were climbing up the side of the building and somebody would poke their heads out of the building and
it was the guest star. Yeah, the guest star. Every week, and it was this big. I mean, for that, to me, half of those people meant nothing because they were, But back in the day, when those guys would appear, it was a big deal because it was the star of one of the stars of the time, like so.
Yeah.
And people forget how big this show was back in when it aired. Like, even like we weren't there, but you read up on it and like you realize that Batman, the products for that series were everywhere, like lunchboxes, action figures. I've seen on one of the the toy shows they had like this Batman cowl. This was this big thing that you pull over, and seemingly a lot of people had those. And what people fail to understand is that at the time of the premiere of the show, the sales for the Batman title, like Batman proper, not Detective, but Batman, were quite low, and it was on the verge of cancellation. But the popularity of that show, the ratings and the popularity of that show, saved the comic book. Like, it kept it in print due to the popularity of the show.
Yeah, with that renewed enthusiasm for the character, next time little Johnny's at the discount drugstore with his mom and he's looking at the magazines on the spinner rack, he's like, oh man, I love Batman. I just watched him last night on my TV. Yeah. So now I'll grab a magazine.
And you got to give them credit for the costumes that were present in the series. Look, they weren't using like nowadays they have different high-tech materials, high-end, not high-tech, but high-end materials to make these costumes. But back then, that was some comic accurate stuff for back in the day. Like in the 50s and 60s, that's what Batman, Robin, and Batgirl looked like. Like, it was comic accurate. Yeah, and you got to appreciate that. I loved So who of the series? I probably can guess your answer, but of the series, who is your favorite? Like your favorite villain?
Oh, Cesar Romero's Joker.
Yeah, I knew that.
It's such a joyful, energetic performance. Um, I love the makeup over his mustache
Yeah. Like
because he
he's like,
refused to shave.
you ain't shaving my name.
Um,
It's the
you
Henry
know,
Cavill situation before they had $25 million to digitally remove it.
but yeah, any episode with Joker was. I love Egghead and Olga.
Yeah.
They were great whenever I was a kid. I knew Vincent Price from Thriller with Michael Jackson,
Yes.
so when I saw him on Batman as a kid, I'm like, oh, that's the Thriller guy. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. So always liked Egghead and Olga episodes.
Yeah, I mean, Joker is obviously the absolute favorite, for sure, for me. But that show put Riddler on the map for me,
Sure.
for sure. Frank Gorshin, what a wonderful performance! Like that. I mean, you can't say enough good things about his performance.
And I
Um,
even enjoyed John Aston's appearance as the
yeah,
Riddler.
yeah, because yeah, that's true because they had to change him because I think it was an availability issue.
Yep.
Um, and then, but I really liked Mr. Freeze, and what got me was that like you think about it now, it's the most ridiculous thing, but he had this ultra cool side of the room, and the other side of the room was ultra heated for his henchmen because it was too cold for them to. And like the distinction was essentially a deep blue light and a deep red light, and that's how you know where. Like, it was such a like it was so hilarious. Um,
Their use of color on that show,
yeah, yeah,
they always did a really good job with with the color palette of bringing the set to life.
yeah, and that's what got me with the Batgirl costume image from Leslie Gray. So like it instantly hit me. I'm like, oh my god, they went there. Like it's not the exact same color, but it's goddamn close. And I'm
Sure.
like, props to them for going there because with DC adaptations pre 2017, you're used to that muted color tone because
Right.
that's Zack Snyder's vibe for the DCU. But it's like, wow, there's color. And between watching Peacemaker and then seeing that image back to back, it's like, oh, it's like a color explosion here. It's, but yeah, the use of color was great. Um, I even liked, who made me laugh? And I enjoyed even King Tut. King Tut.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah. I love some King Tut.
False Face to me seemed like a precursor um, to Two-Face and Clayface, kind of like a mix of the two, or a forefather of the two, I should say, not a mix.
Okay. I can see that.
Right? Uh, he was always an interesting villain because he could be anybody, right? Like that was the idea that he could be anybody, which I liked. And look, the cat women on this show and in that movie. I mean, look, even as a little 4, 5, 6 year old, I was into them back in the day.
Yeah, dude.
I
That
didn't know what
may
having a crush on somebody was, but I had it on them. I'll tell you that.
Lee
Oh,
Merryweather in the
oh.
1966 Batman movie may have been my first crush as
For
a
me, it
kid.
was Newmar because I saw the series before the movie. So Julie Newmar was my like. And by the way, yeah, she's on the Hall of Fame list. So for Donnie here, I'm doing the pen thing.
Nice.
But yeah, I saw her first, so she was always the. But yeah, I mean, Lee was great too, and I even think that Eartha Kitt did a fantastic job.
Oh yeah.
I thought she was great too. And again, for all those people that are like, well, you see it on social media, and it still baffles my mind. Like that we see this stuff. But when Zoe Kravitz was cast, most people were happy because she looks like the year one version, and even better, she's a good actress.
Right.
Zoe.
That's important.
But you're always going to get the idiots. Catwoman isn't black. Like I said, go look at year one. Go look at Darwin Cook's Catwoman, and then come and talk to me. But secondly, 1966 was doing that before, before the internet was around to disparage it. Like, and she fit
And
the
Halle
bill.
Berry too. Don't forget about Halle Berry.
Yeah, of course. But my point was, Eartha Kitt did that first, and
Yeah.
her performance exuded the tone of what we came to expect of Catwoman on that series. And when I was a kid, guess what never crossed my mind? Two things never crossed my mind. When you watch the movie, then the series, it's like, wait a minute, it's not the same person. That never crossed my mind. It was just, oh, there's Catwoman. And then not once when Eartha Kitt took over did I say, I didn't sit there and why is she black? Like, it was like, okay, that's Catwoman. No.
You just took it as it was presented to you,
But,
and you just assume that's the way it's supposed to be.
The beautiful simplicity and naivete of being a kid is you don't ask these stupid questions. It's only when we become adults that some of us get skewed to absolute stupidity and then we come up with this nonsense. But I think all three of them were fantastic in the role. And what was special was the chemistry that Adam West had with the three of them. Like all three, he had fantastic chemistry with, I think.
Well, Adam West he's a legend, right?
Absolutely.
And he put so much effort into this role. He is playing it so straight in a show that is completely wacky, off the wall. Even the camera angles at times were presented to throw you off balance. But Adam West, like you said, his acting and his chemistry with all of those actresses is the reason that you buy into it and you accept it.
Yeah. And you talk about he was so good at playing it straight, but there's a scene that really shows off his ability as an actor, and that to me is the scene where Commissioner Gordon calls both Batman and Bruce Wayne and has them talk to each other. And so he's alternating between Bruce Wayne persona and Batman persona. Now, the voice, there's a slight inflection. It's not gravelly, throat disease.
It's not a Christian Bale.
Yeah, it's not throat disease Batman, but there is a slight change. But just to be able to do that in a scene where you're playing two people, and you're sharing a conversation with the Commissioner Gordon as well as yourself. It's crazy. Like the amount of work he had to put in for that scene. I'm like, yeah, this guy could act. Like there was no doubt about it. And he was just like you said, the sheer straightness that he played. Like he never winked at the audience. Like
nope.
He never treated because he knew that it had to play for kids and adults. For it to work, it had to play to both. But what I like about it, he never winked at the kids. You know what I mean? Like it's never like you watch it and he's winking at the audience saying, yeah, we know this is ridiculous. Like I said, when I watched it, I really believed that they were in peril and things might not end well for them. So, and that's part on him and Dick Ward's performance. Burt Ward, sorry. Yeah. And even he was, he channeled the early Robin era. Like that was pretty accurate for the early appearances of Robin. So, you got to give credit. And I don't think we've ever had a bad Alfred, and this show gave us a pretty good one too. Like, yes, he was the butler, but I love that he got into the mix of things and helped with certain missions too.
Sure. In the movie, when Batman is going undercover as Bruce Wayne, and he is with Catwoman, who is undercover as Kitka, and neither of them knows who the other one is. Well, Alfred and Robin are following them in the Batmobile, and Alfred's got a like a mask on around his eyes.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can still tell who it is, but yeah, he jumps in the missions every now and then.
And there was a couple episodes where he actually dressed up as Batman, which was fantastic too, right? So, um, yeah, like he wasn't just the butler. Like he got involved, like right from and we've all I think we've all Alan Napier was fantastic, and we've always had a really good Alfred throughout all the portrayals. I think the Commissioner Gordon of this series was relatively useless, as was Chief O'Hara, but that was the point. It's like, let's get Batman in here as quickly as possible. So I get why they played it that way.
Well, if the commissioner was too good at his job, then they wouldn't need Batman and Robin.
Right, exactly. And so no, I have such fond memories of this series. I still find it immensely watchable and enjoyable. Personally,
It's so bright and energetic and fun. It's classic, It's something that you can throw on anytime. Now you're probably gonna have to watch 2 episodes because they were mostly filmed that way, where one episode leads into the next one. With that, and you laid out the blueprint for that earlier, where at the end of the first episode they're in some sort of peril and you have no idea how they're going to escape, but then the second episode they're out of it within the first 30 seconds.
Except
and then they're on to the plot.
You have to wait a day, right? When it originally aired.
Oh, when it originally aired, right.
And whereas, that would be, imagine it followed the formula of a regular TV show where you have to wait a week. Can you imagine as a kid, it's like, wait, I mean, gotta wait a week? 7 days to find out what happened? That's unheard of. But yeah, that would be kind of interesting. But, and, I love that there's been a resurgence of Batman 66 in recent years. Like there's comic books now.
Yep.
There were those 2 animated movies that we got with Adam West and Burt Ward before Adam West sadly passed away.
My son loves the one with Two-Face.
Yeah, and what a joy to get Shatner and Adam West acting opposite each other. And think about it, for a 60s era Two-Face, he's pretty perfect casting.
I'm watching through the Wayans brothers on HBO Max, and Adam West was a guest star on an episode that I saw just a couple days ago, and I'm like, oh man, that brings back so many good memories.
That's awesome.
He was able to work off of that for the rest of his life. He, even when he guest starred when he was the mayor on Family Guy, up until the time of his passing, he was the mayor of Quahog, and lent his voice to that episode, even in his later years.
Now, have you ever read any of the comics?
The Batman 66 comics? I have not. Nope.
Oh, we'll have to fix that, and maybe we'll go through some of them on this show. Maybe
sure.
We'll that'll be our ode to 66. We'll go through some of the comics, and remember, just before we wrap up here, the Batman series of 1966 gave us the first superhero crossover, if you remember, with the Green Hornet.
That's right, and Kato.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, the Avengers was great, but without
Bruce Lee guest starring on Batman was like a huge deal when it happened.
Very huge. Yeah, it was big. It was big. And there's also there's also a comic by Kevin Smith, Batman Meets the Green Hornet. So maybe we'll start with that one. We'll start with that one and then go through the 66 comics. But yeah, just, I mean, so, like I said, I'm so glad that people have come to a point where now they're appreciating that version of Batman. Whereas there were years there where, you know, if you were a Batman fan, you'd kind of distance yourself from it because it wasn't the cool thing. And even DC at one point kind of distanced themselves, like they didn't mention it, they didn't. But now it's full swing. You got action figures, you got, like I said, comics, the animated movies. So I'm glad that it's been embraced again, and it's taken its rightful place in Batman history. Because without it, I don't think we get all the cool stuff that we've gotten today.
Well, it pretty much laid the groundwork for the shows that came after it, like Wonder Woman and The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah,
You know, I don't think either of those. I don't think those shows happened without the success of Batman before them.
Yeah, that's very true. So, yeah, I I love the series. I still do. I can watch it at any time, which is great. And it was cool to look back. And it seems like we're gonna have some more focus on upcoming episodes regarding Batman 66. So look out for those comic reviews. And we hope you enjoyed our look back and a little mini retrospective on the series. But if you want to talk about the Batgirl info with us or the look back on Batman 66, you can on social media. So Chris, where do they track you down?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Chris N. Harrelson, or you can just do a search, as you alluded to earlier, for Commodore Schmidlap, that name coming, of course, from the 1966 Batman movie. But, you know, when we'll post about the episode in the Facebook group, and if you have any comments there, we'll be happy to have a conversation.
Yeah, and for me, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Adam_LeafsFan. The Vidcast Network has its own Twitter handle, at MMNPDC. As Chris alluded to, we do have a Facebook group. It's listed in the description below. Click that, and I will add you to the group, and we can continue the conversation there. But remember, until next time, Batman 66 is forever. From the first time Batman and Catwoman shared a milkshake to the last. So long, everybody.
Bye, everybody.